Good evening, everyone, and those present, and good morning, those who joined from US and eastern part, no, western part, no, sorry, eastern part, and good evening to all those who joined from the eastern zone. And on my personal behalf, as well as on behalf of the academy, I would like to welcome you all on this 19th edition of this lectureship series, which is International Monthly Lecture Series. And today we have a special guest, Sri Ravi Kant, who has been the ex-CEO of Tata Motors as well as the vice chairman. And those who are joining first time, like to give a brief about the academy. So we started this in last December, not last December, it's going to be 2 years now. And 2021, we started our journey. And then after that, uh, we came with the program of this monthly lectureship series, and in between we had two beautiful events as well. One leadership conclave, one women leadership conclave, and the last month we also had, along with the samvad. Samvad means the dialogue. So that was organized by the students team. And now last month we had a uh, talk by Professor Sehag, and today by Sri Ravi Kanji. So to introduce Sri Ravi Kanji, I request our Dr. Ghosh to introduce Sri Ravi Kanji and give a preface for today's talk and set up the tone. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhashne. Thanks to everyone who has joined this particular very important conference. And special thanks to a very good friend of mine, Ravi Kant, whom I've known for almost 2 decades. But every time we spoke together, I was very, very charmed by his thoughtfulness, by his kindness, by his ability to connect multiple dots, some visible, some invisible. That's in short how will I describe Ravi. But before I really introduce Ravi formally, I want to position what Ravi Kant would talk about this evening in India, this morning in the United States, in the context of what is the theme of the Academy of Leadership. The Academy of Leadership, we believe we were all working very hard, and I'm so glad we have formed literally an ecosystem of great friends, great leaders who come together every month, as you could see from the people that you see on Zoom. But the purpose is to bring a new kind of leadership in the 21st century. I mean, I often have said in various forums across the world, if there's one deficit in the world, it is the deficit of leadership. And it is very, very clear from what's happening in the world, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in the center of Europe, whether it's even in the United States, the struggle between the two parties, the gridlock in the US Congress, and various parts of the world. I mean, it can go on and on. But clearly, we are having difficulty to find individuals who could create plus some synergies that still work with the zero-sum game. So that is what the Academy of Leadership is all about. It is to bring Eastern and Western philosophy towards a new concept of what we would call enlightened leadership. Maybe some would call leadership from the front, some would call leadership from the back. But the real message that we want to bring out, whether you're the front or the back, the role of the leader is to be selfless and inspire. And that's what, to be honest with you, without flattering Ravi, that's how I view Ravi. Now, just to formally introduce Ravi, he has, as you know, though he looks very young, but I do not believe that he has spent 5 decades, literally 5 decades of corporate life. As you heard, he was last the CEO. That's when I met him first. And I want to talk about the first experience that I had with Ravi, that itself shows who he is. And he was Tata Motors CEO, and I met him in his office in the Bombay house, if I recall, on the request of Ratan Tata that you should meet Ravi. Ravi is doing something very interesting. So what he did, typically CEOs would not do that, but CEOs are CEOs. I am a stupid consultant. but he treated me with the highest level of respect, so much so he made a presentation to me that how could Indian companies emerge as multinationals um, in the world. And soon after that, I started realizing Ravi started at building the global footprint of Tata Motors. As you know, Tata acquired um, Jaguar Land Rover in the United Kingdom. Tata Daewoo, you guys are familiar with, in South Korea, created Tata Motors in Thailand. And that defined that he is not only the presentation that he made, which was a perfect high quality management consulting style presentation, but he converted the presentation into something which became real, which defines Tata Motors. He took the company from $1.5 billion to about close to $40 billion, which is not very easy. Now, as you may know, I view Ravi as a man of multiple seasons. He's not only familiar with automotive industry, he's also familiar with aerospace, where he's worked in, I think, in Hindustan HAL. Then he worked in Hindustan Aluminum, Kinetic Engineering, Titan Watches. So he has really seen the whole spectrum of the engineering industry, which also makes Ravi a very, very special person, which you will see as he starts speaking. And now Ravi is also involved in a lot of international endeavors. He's connected with a company in Helsinki, Kone Ltd, which I know very well, by the way. It's a high-class top elevator company. He's connected with Hawkins Cookers. So as you could see, from elevators to cooking, he is really covering a huge range. And I can go on and on. But as you will see, when Ravi starts speaking, you will understand the depth and the breadth of experience that he will bring from the back, but he's always on the front to take the risk, but he's always on the back in sharing the rewards. So that's the kind of character that we want to build in our youngsters in India, across the world, and also in the corporate world. So from that point of view, Ravi, your speech today will really define what I would call is the vision and the mission of the Academy of Leadership. And obviously, we will look forward to your very active participation. A little bit about his education. Ravi really went to one of those prestigious, which perhaps defines Ravi, apart from being a distinguished alumni of IIT, which we all share. But he went to this famous school, which is the Mayo College in Ajmer. And I met a lot of personalities from Mayo College, and I must say, there's something about Mayo College which defines, maybe similar to IIT Kharagpur, a special, I would say, intellectual and spiritual ferment, which perhaps plays out in their corporate life, in their public service life. On top of that, I must say that Ravi did his higher education also at the Aston University, and he also received the honorary D.Sc degree from Aston, and I think he deserves many such honorary degrees. In fact, when Academy of Leadership was a stature on behalf of Academy of Leadership to inspire Ravi to continue to do good work, I hope Academy of Leadership would confer you with a D.Sc, another D.Sc as yet. With that, let me have the privilege to hand over, Ravi, to you to listen to your words of wisdom, and in the process enrich our thinking process. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Partha. It was a lovely introduction, and Dr. Varshney. I thank Partha for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. I really feel honored and privileged to be following illustrious predecessors in this series. I think I'm the 19th one. And I'm very humbled, actually. I feel a lot of humility in talking about a subject called leadership in front of so many leaders in the audience. So I don't know whether it is the right subject, but nevertheless, I'm taking the challenge and I will be talking about it. And please feel free to to come back to me after the thing, whether you agree, disagree, or whatever your points of views are. In fact, the whole purpose of accepting this uh, particular interaction, so kindly suggested by Partha just a couple of weeks ago, is to really get your views as to what I'm doing and whether it is right or whether it should be modified, so that we can make it better and create better quality of leadership, as very rightly Partha said, in the world. So here it is. So I'm going to be talking about something very contrary to the more commonly understood way of leading, that is leading from the front. And for want of a better word, I'm calling it leading from the back to achieve the impossible. Normally, leadership is seen to be associated with leading from the front. This has been immensely successful. So this type, leading from the front, has been immensely successful for centuries. And as I said, I'm offering a contrarian view. Leading from the back should not be seen as a soft option. I just want to say that. And should not be seen as an application of responsibility of delivering results in a tough and challenging situation. So we should be quite clear that I'm talking about is leading from the back is only a style of leading. But as far as other parameters are concerned, requirements are concerned, they don't change at all for any leader. And therefore, if we come to the next slide, which is, so leadership in any organization is a critical component. We all know that, and it can make a difference, both for better or for worse. But it is not the only thing, and it is contextual. So leadership is contextual. It doesn't mean that the same leader will continue to be leading rightly unless the leader himself changes himself to the context, and that's the quality of a high class leader, I must say that, of contextual. Now, contextual could be in the sense of the company, in the cyclicality of the industry, or economy, or major or geopolitical things. So that's contextual, in which the company works or the organization works. I am going back 2,500 years ago, and I'm talking about leadership in a military organization, and I'll tell you why I'm saying so. At that point in time, there were only infantry and cavalry, and leading from the front was the norm. In fact, it was the essential part, and it required infantry and cavalry. There were only certain speed you could do. You could use weapons by hand or by kind of javelin, which will go a few meters. And therefore, the leading, and you needed to show valor in front of all your troops. And therefore, leading from the front was, you can say, de rigueur. It was an essential need of the time. So I'll just draw attention to one of the very famous proponent of this, nearly 2005 years ago, is Alexander the Great. You have all heard of him. Now, Alexander the Great became a king at the age of 20 and built the largest transcontinental empire at the age 30 when he died. He was tutored by Aristotle the Great, Greek philosopher, who gave him a wide perspective and broad thinking. Alexander is called the Great, because he never lost a battle despite being outnumbered, because of his intelligent use of terrain and cavalry factors and tactics, combined with speed, maneuverability, and fierce loyalty of his troops. After conquering the Persian Empire, that was the largest at that point in time, conquering the Persian Empire, he came very close to India. In fact, he was at the western edge of India, which is partly now Pakistan and Afghanistan. And he would have proceeded further into India, but for two reasons, I believe. One is his army was totally fatigued, fighting for 12, 13 years. And number two, he had to face the might of very, very large Nanda Empire. And they had thousands of horses and tens and thousands of elephants and things like that. So I think better sense prevailed on him and he went back. Unfortunately, within 3 years of returning, he passed away. But closer home, a few decades later, we also had in India Chandragupta Maurya and his grandson Ashoka. They had built the largest empire ever in India, and they also led from the front. At that point in time, as I said, because only cavalry and infantry were available. But there is a difference between Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka, and Alexander on the other side. And the difference is that the height of his power, Chandragupta, and incidentally, he had the famous Chanakya or Kautilya as part of his entourage, part of his group of advisors, and we all know about Chanakya and Kautilya. So he had, like Aristotle was for Alexander, Chanakya and Kautilya was Chandragupta Maurya. But at the height of his power, what he did, an amazing thing, is he left everything and he embraced Jainism. And his grandson, after, again at the height of his power and after the major battle of Kalinga, as we all know, we have all read, he embraced Buddhism. And there's a point why I'm saying this, because what it shows is a concept which I'm trying to now introduce in the talk, is detachment. So this is very special about Indian heroes, Indian this thing, that there is a sense of detachment, that even if you achieve a lot of power, you don't necessarily stick to it. And I think that is something which is really great. But if you come back to military and then say, okay, what's happening today? And what's happening today? We can fight on land, water, air, and the range and speed and the lethal impact or effect of these weapons are huge. And they are 1,000,000 times, 1,000 times more than what used to happen 2,500 years ago, or even 350, 400 years ago. War has become such a complex thing mainly because of industrial revolutions. That's where all of us are kind of very familiar with. The industrial revolutions, which started really in the UK in 18th century and then carried on. And so the onset of steam engine, the onset of electricity later on, they gave rise to or enabled mass manufacturing to happen. And then I will come to that, why it is important for this. And therefore, now we are seeing that we are in kind of industrial revolution 3, 4, 5, 6 we are talking about. And therefore, the whole thing is becoming so complex that leading from the front is totally impossible. As we are seeing today, it's not the general who's it's not Mr. Putin who's there in the front or Mr. Zelensky is in the front out there. There are different people there because you're firing the missiles from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. You're sending drones, you're sending planes, So the classical sense of leading from the front is no more possible in military. So what is leadership in military to do with corporates? A lot. Why a lot? Because the corporates started coming into being only after Industrial Revolution. Because mass manufacturing started happening. And when mass manufacturing started happening, you needed to have organizations. And you needed to have organizations, they needed to have processes, you needed to have tasks, you needed to have various other things to enable the organization to go forward in a systematic manner, and everybody should understand. It was no more a group of 20, a group of 30 persons, so that everybody knows each other. So it becomes very impersonal. So how do you organize that? And in front of the corporate, the easiest thing was the military. And therefore, I believe they borrowed most of the concepts from military only. So whether it was hierarchical structure, whether it is processes, whether it is this thing, and they started doing. And therefore, naturally also they followed the leading from the front principle, and which worked very well for centuries. It worked very well. But then, where are we today? We are, I mean, we are kind of surrounded by uncertainty, unpredictability. The black swan events are so many of them because they have become a regular thing. There are no more black swans. Tsunami of information that is coming here. And I just want to quote Professor Ray Kurzweil of MIT and also of Google. He had said that the rate of progress is doubling so much that the centuries data or progress is today contained in today's rate contained in a month. And now, as we are going, that was a few years ago when he predicted that. But certainly, as we say, the things are going in a kind of a geometrical progression. So that will be contained in a week or in a day. So we can understand how much information is coming. It is totally mind-boggling. I mean, no, it's not possible for anybody to have the information just by himself. But it is also increasing a lot of complexity. And complexity is getting more and more difficult. So you can understand it is impossible to lead from the front anymore. Now, this is the situation we are in today. That the context has changed so dramatically that it is not possible for a person to lead from the front. He has to have lead from the front, back, as I'm saying, because we are talking about distributed leadership. Lead from the back is about distributed leadership, where you are not the only one. You may be first amongst equals, others, but you need to have a lot of other people and distribute the leadership. The second point why leading from the front today is not popular or it's not cannot function is this one. The millennials and Gen Z, this generation dislikes the characteristics of a leader leading from the back: pompous, egocentric, know-all, my way or highway type of leaders, as we all know. And there are plenty of them. We have seen this in the last 100, 150 years. So many of them, and they're still coming up, although smaller in numbers. Now, and we have all experienced this kind of leaders. But the today's generation, the younger generation, is saying, look, I don't want to work in this kind of environment. And therefore, if you make me work, I would rather go and find a place somewhere else. So there are two parts. One is that environment has become so complex. And number two, the generation doesn't want that kind of leadership. And therefore, we need to look at an alternative way of leadership. So, summing up, I'm saying leading from the front is broken in my view. And in my view also, it is beyond repair. And therefore, we need to have an alternative. What is that alternative? Now, this is based on kind of my 5 decades of experience, as Partha said that I have actually 5 decades of experience, and I've worked in different types of companies, in different industries, in different cycles of industries, different economic cycles, business cycles, going up, coming down, startups, mature companies, all that. So I'm saying a fairly wide range of situations I have gone through. In fact, I was very fortunate that God gave me this opportunity to be exposed to such wide variety of experiences. And from that, I have derived a certain way of working. And I'll tell you, this leading from the back is actually not my words. And I did not know that it is called leading from the back. But I was working in a certain manner. Till 3 years ago, I met with a very close friend of mine who was in advertising. And I asked him, Sridhar, can you please tell me describe how I worked. You know me for 20 years. And you know, he paused for a minute and he said, Ravi, you lead from the back. That's the first time I heard about it. And the first time I said, okay, what is it? Then I started working backwards and started deconstructing what does it mean. And then I have come to then some home truths, which I'll share with you. So simplifying everything, distilling all the experience and knowledge into something very, very simple. So I've got 3 questions. These define the so-called leading from the back. First is, how should I be? Second is, how should I deal with the team? And third is, how should I deal with the task? Because ultimately, the organization is for dealing with the task. So how should I be? First is to have an open mind. The open mind is easier said than done. And he has a closed mind is a commonly heard refrain we keep encountering every day in our lives. As far as we ourselves are concerned, as we gain more experience, reach higher levels, and especially become more successful, and the more successful we become, the more close-minded we become. I mean, just let us be honest and see ourselves. I mean, there are plenty of such examples around us. The more successful you are, more close-minded you become, because you feel that whatever has worked in the past, I have the golden touch, is going to work in the future. And you develop this not invented here syndrome, that if I have not done it, if successful company has not done it, then it doesn't need to be done. Till they find that something else has done and taken their food away from them. And it's the examples are galore. I don't have to tell you, whichever industry you take, whichever country you take, across the world, this is something which has been responsible for demise of so many big companies, Now, I say this fellow I have an open mind, but this fellow is closed mind. Till you ask the other guy who thinks is a closed mind, what it thinks about me. And then he'll tell you, you have a closed mind too. So this is something which is there. Now, I'll just give a small example of that. Is you know, we were kind of what should I say, doing something in Korea. We mentioned about Korea. Partha mentioned about Korea. We are gone to for this Daewoo truck company, and there were 10 bidders, and we were one of them. And we were thought to be from third world country, and we said, okay, what should we do? And so there was, and they don't speak English; they speak only Korean. And so a middle manager was assigned to us, and I said, look, as we are trying to take the company, we must find out what do people in the company want, because ultimately you're not buying an innate asset, you're not buying a kind of piece of machinery, you're buying a living organization, and you want to work with that living organization to do better and better. So I asked this person as to what kind of company he would like to be associated. And I said, totally be honest. And he said, he would like to be associated with a European company. So I said, why? So he said, because we will get technology, and that technology will sustain our future. Now, mind you, he was telling the truth. And if it was somebody, he would have got offended. But I said, no. If you think with an open mind, what he's saying is absolutely correct. And therefore, what can we do? So we identified there's a communication gap. He did not know, or they did not know what Tata Motors is all about. They did not know that the corporate governance for which Daewoo and so many Chevrolets in Korea were getting broken up is something which Tatas have been doing for over 100 years. And therefore, we changed the whole strategy, we changed the whole tactics. And I must tell you, I don't want to go into details of that. So finally, what happened, the kind of things we did just on one sentence, that when my team was coming back, those people got emotional, and they said, if the company has to go to anybody, it must go to Tata Motors. So how did it all happen? It happened because of just one piece of conversation. And if we were close-minded, we would not have gone anywhere. We would have killed the whole initiative. But having an open mind really made us get an opportunity. So this is an important thing. And in this, listening is kind of, you need to create this thing for listening. You must listen and all that. So I don't want to go further on that. And let's go. Assume ownership. Assume ownership is something, let me put it this way. Even though you may not be the owner in financial terms, if you begin to think you are virtual owner within inverted commas, your entire perspective of dealing with the subject changes. And you begin to see in terms of well-being of the organization and not about just well-being of yourself. And it changes the whole perspective. At the same time, when you do this, it is something which is which I would say is a great thing. And I can again give an example here of LML. LML, when I left Titan to join LML for personal reasons, so because I had to go to Delhi, so LML was going into liquidation. And I joined the company, and I went there with this frame of mind that what you are owner of this company, would you let it go into liquidation? What will happen to thousands of workers who are there if it closes down? And then you begin to think a very different mindset. And finally, of course, we did a lot of things as a result of which that LML, started making profits and things like that. Last one is detached. I just lightly touched up earlier. I mean, it's very difficult for a Western mind to understand this, but I am sure Indian minds with understand this. What is detachment? And I talked about Chandragupta Maurya and Ashoka, that height of their powers, they gave everything up and they became either embraced Jainism or Buddhism or things like that. So here also in our thing, we need to do our job, we need to do our things, but at the same time, we should not be too, this thing is, only I must get this position, I must get this money, I must get this thing. Because there are a lot of other things beyond us which are there. And we suddenly seem to, when things happen, we suddenly seem to get exhilarated and we find that, okay, this was because I had done things. No. You may have played a very small part, but it is because of circumstances, because of your team, and because of this thing that things have happened. And similarly, in case of when things go down. Then after dealt with myself, now we should deal with the team. Building trust. Building trust is, as I said, I don't have to explain this. We all know that building trust is the foundation of building a team. Trust acts as a kind of a lubricant for everybody to work well and gets them motivated. And coming from Tata's, where the byline for Tata's is leadership with trust. And therefore, any organization, any group of people, trust is very important. And there is an economic value to trust also. And you'll see that you spend less. If you have built trust, then your expenses go down, your cost of procurement go down, many things happen. And trust is something once it gets broken, it is very difficult to rebuild the trust. In organizations, it may be possible, but as far as individuals are concerned, it's very difficult to come back. And going to the second point of collaborate is, again, I don't have to explain to this group, but it is only after you build trust can you have good collaboration. I think this is something we must understand. And again, collaboration. If there was a lot of time, I would have given nano example. Nano example, which is an outstanding this thing of innovation, did happen only because of collaboration from suppliers, collaboration from team, collaboration from thinking out of box. So this is something which is very important. And finally, we have leverage strengths. So everybody has strengths, but we tend to look at people's weaknesses generally. And it happens in products, it happens in organizations. And therefore, if we identify a strengths of people and be conscious of the weaknesses and put that all strengths together, then you can understand by having trust, by having collaboration and putting all the strengths together, you can understand, you can make a very powerful team. Again, I'll give a small example here. In one of the companies I used to work, there was a head of sales who was extremely good at sales, but he had difficulty in kind of speaking English and things like that. And the boss was very good in that. And therefore, a time came when we started looking at his progression in the company. I was told, well, if he can't speak English, how can he progress? So I said, look, we have appointed him to do sales and to demonstrate how sales is done. And that's what he's doing. Because what he used to do, if an area manager would take, say, order for 6 units, the regional manager would make it 8 units. The all India manager could make it, say, 12 units. But this person would make it 120 units. And it is that itself was a learning. That itself was a learning. And therefore, we need to leverage the strength. And if somebody has got weaknesses, you can always do things to cover the weakness or support the weakness. I'm also reminded of Abraham Lincoln. You know, in Civil War, Abraham Lincoln had General Grant. So people always saying ill things about people who are successful. So people went to Abraham Lincoln and told him, this General Grant is always drunk. He drinks every evening and he drinks a lot. And he's kind of, you can't talk to him. So you know what Abraham Lincoln said? Abraham Lincoln said that, can you tell me the brand of whiskey he drinks so that I make sure that he has uninterrupted supply of whiskey? Because I have appointed General Grant to win the war. That's exactly what he's doing. Of course, this is an extreme example of leveraging strength, but I think I made the point. Lastly, we come to now that you change yourself. Now you got a great team. Now how do we deal with the task? So again, the 3 things are there. Test the limits. You know, I'm not an incrementalist. I go for big things, and it's been, as I said, I've been fortunate that I've got the opportunity, especially in Tata Motor. And this is something which I've learned in Tata Motors a lot, because just to quote Mr. Tata's comments in an interview, quote, I learned to think big and bold, not succumb to the safest thing to do. Don't be a follower. Don't just do what you know to be okay. Go there and break the ground. Fortunately, as I said, I got a lot of opportunities in Tata Motors to do this. I had opportunities before Tata Motors also. And therefore, you go for something big. You go for opportunities, not an incremental manner, but go for what the opportunity could be, and then work backwards. As I said, look outside in, and not inside out. Inside out, you can only be incremental, 5%, 10%, 15% change. But if you look from outside in, then you begin to see a different perspective. You begin to see that you need to think out of the box. You need to be innovative. You need to do this thing if you really want to achieve that. And finally, I come to be tough softly. Be tough softly. Why be tough softly? Now, as far as the performance parameters are concerned, you got to be tough. As I mentioned earlier, leading from the back does not mean that you are a soft person. As far as performance is concerned, as far as results are concerned, there is no concession there. So you got to be very tough. But at the same time, you must be humane. You must understand that after all, these are being done by people. And people go through different periods in their lives. Sometimes they have good times, and sometimes they have bad times. And I think when we are dealing with that kind of situation, you must be conscious and be careful that, okay, go into more detail of that person and see why something has happened, because it has happened, because either it's good or it's bad. And I think you should be responsive to the phase in which a person is, responsive to his problem, responsive to his kind of abilities and things like that. It is in that way I'm saying be tough softly. So as far as performance is concerned, be tough. But as far as people are concerned, softly. I know it is going to raise many questions, but we'll come to question and answers when we talk about all this. So just to sum it all, leading from the back, 3 questions. How should I be? How should I deal with the team? And how should I deal with the task to achieve the impossible? To achieve the impossible, okay, so we need to understand what do we mean by achieve the impossible. And the natural question would be, how do you say that? And therefore, I would say, proof of the pudding is in the eating. So I will not be able to show all the examples in this constraint of time, but definitely I will share with you some of the results which have come out of different situations. And you can understand, as I said, one has been using these kind of things wherever possible. And it is not just me, it is the whole organization, other people, and things like that. In fact, Titan is a company, I would say, is an ideal company as far as leading to the back is concerned. His first CEO, managing director, Akhand Desai, was embodiment of that. Soft-spoken, built a great team, and went for something which was not possible. Titan brought the demise of timekeepers to the nation, which is HMT watches. It does not exist anymore. So you can understand great things were done. As I said, I can't go into all details. And I was fortunate to be heading sales and marketing for the first 5.5 years in this company. We set up a lot of basic things in the organization. And as far as marketing is concerned, we put the conventional marketing on its head and created something very new. LML was born with the golden spoon, but it threw it away and became a kind of niche player, having 8 to 9% market share. And Bajaj was dominant at that point in time. Bajaj Chetak was such a kind of scooter that even after you sold, even if you sold after 2 years, you'll get the same price as the new one, because there was so much of demand. In that kind of situation, you can understand LML went from 9% to 32% market share. Those who are in consumer goods industries will understand in a span of 4 years, will understand this is a well-nigh impossible task, but it did happen. And it turned from a loss-making to a profit-making business. Philips. Philips, great for innovation, but I think somewhat needed a lot on marketing front. And they had introduced a product there. That time there was a box television, and it was languishing at 500. And we took a target of going tenfold. And look, everybody was said, this is not possible. It's not possible. But again, I said, I won't go into details, but we made it happen in 10 months' time. Why 10 months' time? Because I knew I was leaving the company as soon as I joined. And therefore, I had set myself a target. Before I left, we should achieve this target. But it didn't stop there. It finally went up to 7,500. So I'm giving you something which is from 500 to 7,500 is quite an amazing story in 12 months' time or 13 months' time. Then Tata Motors, Partha just talked about 1.6 billion to 39, 40 billion in 15 years. I think that's quite remarkable. It also went through a massive this thing because the economy tanked and in 99, 2000. And because of trucks, the dominant thing was trucks in Tata Motors. And trucks are very close to the economy. And therefore, although we retained our market share, the overall volumes went down and we turned a loss of 5 billion. But within 2 years' time, we turned around and created the same kind of profit for in 2 years' time. And two of the most innovative things I would feel ever done in four-wheeler industry. One is for commercial vehicles. And a small vehicle was created, which doubled the commercial vehicle market. And Nano, as I talked about, an outstanding example of innovation. Daewoo. Why Daewoo? I've talked something about Daewoo, but Daewoo became a template for overseas acquisition by Indian companies. I mean, when there is time, I can go on for 2 hours on Daewoo itself. It became a template for Tata Motors. And that template came in very handy when we went 4 years later for Jaguar Land Rover. Jaguar Land Rover, we bought for 2.5 billion pounds. And in 2 years' time, we were making 2.5 billion pounds bottom line. So it is astounding. No question of that. So I think I've been able to share with you that these are difficult times. These are complex times. It is not possible for somebody to lead from the front. And therefore, in this kind of situation, we need to look at something which an alternative, for want of better words. As I said, I'm calling it leading from the back. And I've given you what it means through 3 questions. I've given you support of that. It is not kind of an academic lecture I'm giving, but it is a real life situation. It is an experienced learning, and from experience learnings, some home truths have come. And I feel that in view of what I've said, it is an idea whose time has come, to borrow Victor Hugo's phrase. He's a French philosopher. I hope all of you know. Again, about 200 to 250 years ago. All the forces in the world are not so powerful as an idea whose time has come. I do believe passionately it is an idea whose time has come. And in most of the successes that I've seen, whether it was Titan watches or whether it was with Philips or with LML, it was in Tata Motors, I've seen one thing, that you gain a lot. Because when the major changes are, the undercurrent is changing, at that point, if you can tap into it, then you can make it big. So, of course, all credit to Titan watches and Tata Motors in this thing, and Philips and LML. But we must understand very clearly, because the consumer was already changing, and we were the first to tap into this. I do hope that leading from the back is also one of those things and one of those products which is right thing for the right times. And therefore, it should have a... Just to take another one, that was 200 years ago, Times of India, our largest English daily, on 28th of September, came with an article called Leading from the Back Comes to the Fore. So I think there is something which is beginning to happen. It is early days yet, but I do feel that it can be made into this thing. It's a difficult, because it's a difficult concept. It is not what I'm familiar with, not what I've lived with, not what I've seen. And therefore, it is going to be somewhat difficult to. But I feel one thing, once it catches on, then it will go like a rocket. I have no doubt in my mind. And therefore, to put it across, with two of my co-authors, we have written a small book, Leading from the Back to Achieve the Impossible, on which the whole talk was. But I came to the book the last. It is top of the head is, of course, very naturally a quote from Mr. Tata, which I'll read out. Much has been written about different forms of leadership, but very little has been written about managing from the back. Ravi Kant has endeavored to share his experience in this less defined area, providing us with his insights and softer management style. Harry Paul, I must spend a minute or two on Harry Paul and Roswell. Well, this came about, it's a parable. It's not kind of somebody is looking for, it's my experiences and incidents of those experiences. It's not there. It's a parable. Shiv is a middle level manager who is very successful, but starts encountering problems. And therefore, how does he reach his goal of being the CEO? And therefore, he needs to change himself. And he goes through an orientation program kind of, and therefore he begins to see that the way he has been doing things needs to change, and he needs to have a different kind of way of doing things, which will make him succeed in the future. So what succeeded in the past is not going to be what will make him succeed in the future. Now, Harry has written they are both great parable writers. Harry has co-written a parable called Fish. Those of you who are old enough to understand, to remember, this is about 25 years ago, and The Fish was a runaway bestseller. It sold more than 6 million copies. And Harry said after writing this book, he said, "I wish we had the information and things what we have today to write Fish. It should have been different." Ross is also a very renowned guy. He was professor at Arizona State University, outstanding professor of marketing, and now of course he's a consultant and he's written many books. I think the latest one is The Win-Win Negotiator. The book has a number of endorsements besides Mr. Tata, Mr. Chandrasekharan, Chairman Tata Sons, Ram Charan, who most of us would know, advisor to CEOs and boards of Fortune 100 companies, Antti Herlin, who is the chairman of the board of Kone Corporation, where I'm a member. Hap Klopp is the founder and 20-year CEO of North Face, the famous North Face, USA. Dr. Dominic Turpin, he is an outstanding example of an academician. He has been co-president of, he's been president of IMT Lausanne, and he's currently co-president of Professor Marketing at Seed Shanghai, China. Dominic also is a dear friend. Julia King. Julia was the vice chancellor at Aston when I was there. And again, she's a fantastic, she's the Baroness Brown of Cambridge and former vice chancellor. Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar, I need not say more. He is a guru as far as scientific and industrial research is concerned. He retired as former director general, and he's been on many boards. In addition to that, actually there are 21 of them, endorsements from global business and thought leaders, which are in full insight. So who is the book meant for? Probably not the people who are listening to this interaction today, but my target group is below 40 years. And that is why it is only in paperback. It is or Kindle. It is cover price of $299, but you can get it for $250, $260 It's in parable story form. It is illustration, so that you are able to convey the idea in a simpler form, and that's the whole idea. It is, as I said, it's a difficult subject, and therefore we thought it will be easier to convey this form to go to people. But it's going to be tough, no question of that. And the book is available on Amazon and stores, various stores, and all, also on eBay and things like that. But in Amazon in the US, it's available only in Kindle edition, but you can buy it from eBay. But India is the best. You can get it for less than $3 here. So I just want to have the last one is, I'm not a book writer, and I'm not talking about the book. I'm not talking about myself. I'm not talking about authorship. I'm talking about the idea. I do passionately believe, as I said earlier, the idea is that idea of leading the back is something whose time has come. So forget about the book, forget about authors, including Ravi Kant and everybody else, because this should not impede on the dissemination of this idea all through wherever it is possible. And I believe in something which those of you who read novels, Elena Ferrante, who has been a very successful writer, Italian writer, but writes anonymously. Nobody knows what her name is and who she is, whether it's a she or a he. And she's written the quartet of Neapolitan novels and many more. And she says, I believe that books once written have no need of their authors. And I feel the same way. You've got the book, forget about the book. The content, the idea is what you should take and spread. And this is something which cannot be done by one person, which cannot be done by one medium, and which cannot be done in one day. And therefore, I would seek help from all of you to take this idea far and wide. So thank you very much. And here I am, finally. You're seeing my face here. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ravi sir, for taking us through this wonderful presentation of yours. And especially, I would say this was more where you were sharing your experiences and your learning through experience of this 5 decades of leading. And I would say leading from the back. It's a very interesting and a curiosity driving, I would say, a tagline or I would say a punchline in that manner. You see leading from the back. However, I would see it in a manner where when you say leading from the back, it's more about being a mentor leader, being a guide leader, being someone who's creating more and more leaders around. And in that context, you have given us a 3-dimensional model, I would say, which helps us understand that, it's more than you. It's more important to put your team before you. It's more important to put the task before you. And that's why the model which you shared in that 3 major questions which you focused upon, the most important was, always the leader's phase is I, me, myself. And that's where the first question which you addressed was, how should I be? How a leader himself should be when he's leading from the back. And that's where you gave us 3 points to keep in mind. It says, have an open mind, assume the ownership, and be detached. 2 of the things which really gives an alarming thing to understand out here is assuming ownership. And I recently heard in another lecture where someone said, responsibilities are not given, responsibilities are taken. So it's very important for leaders, for us to understand that responsibility needs to be taken. And in another context, you made a point about being detached. That's one thing which we as Indians do understand it very well, because we come from the land of spirituality where detachment is very important for us. And that's where you mentioned the example of Ashoka and Chandragupta Maurya, where you said they were detached and the West probably will not be able to understand this particular context at all. In that manner. Second thing, you brought it up, the team is very important. And that's how should I deal with the team? Because you need to put the team before as a leader when you're leading from the back and then putting the team in front. A lot of people might criticize this point where they might say that pushing the team in the front and leading from the back. However, in this context where you mentioned it, it made us understand that leading from the back requires putting the team before you. And that's when you said, build that trust with your team. We always say we can do very little with trust. However, without it, we cannot do anything at all. So that's where building that trust at an individual level, not only at the organization level, and that's what is very important. Collaborating was the other point. And the third thing was leveraging the strength of the people, leveraging your people's strength. Swami Chinmayanand used to say, people are not useless, they are used less. And it's very important for leaders to identify those qualities of leader. And that's when you made us that point, and you made us understand it by giving that example of the salesman and Abraham Lincoln's example, which you gave us about, leveraging the strength of the people and using them, what's their strength is all about. And third most important, dealing with the task. How should you deal with the task? So test your limits, keep pushing things. Think big and think bold. That is what you gave us as a learning from Sir Ratan Tata's words, which were there. Look outside in. It's a very interesting concept to understand when we always say look inside out, but also important to have an outside in perspective, which is there. Be tough, but softly. A very, very important point for leaders to understand. No more my way or the highway. We have to understand the people. We have to work with them in the softer manner, but at the same time, we have to be subtly tough as well to deal with that. And post that, you gave us all those lovely, amazing examples. I would not say examples, but those were your achievements, which I would say, which you shared with us, especially Titan, LML, Philips, Tata Motors, Daewoo, and obviously the most wonderful one, which we all love to glorify about in India, is Land Rover and Jaguar. So thank you very much, sir, for giving this amazing presentation about your understanding and a different perspective, I would say, on leading from the back. So thank you very much, sir. I would request Commander JP, sir, to please, because sir, I see a lot of questions coming up and very interesting questions in there. So over to Commander JP, sir, to please take on some question answers for us.
Thank you, Pranav, and thank you, Ravi Kant ji. It was really amazing, let me tell you. This is something, what people have been using the jargon always in the management schools, colleges, leading from the front all the time. And now when you were talking, I actually realized that most of us actually have been leading from the back in actual practice. But we have been using the jargon, same jargon which is going on for the infantry days, leading from the front. So I just remembered, when Osama bin Laden was being attacked by the US troops and Barack Obama was sitting in the control room, leading from the back. The people who are there in the action, they were different. Similarly, in the army also, the general in Indian army, let's say he sits in Delhi only, in the control room, monitoring what is happening on this border, what is happening on the other border, leading from the back. And we also as leaders, most of us, we do delegate actually to our people, and they do the needful. We lead from the back. So I think, sir, you have put the things in the correct perspective that what actually we are doing it. And now let me go to the question. First question I'm going to ask is, Radhika Shapurji has asked how to create a culture of leading from the back when we are living in trust deficit environment.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Radhika has, I've known Radhika for some time, and she knows me. I'll come back to trust. Unless you develop trust. I've been in 7 organizations in different industries of which I had no knowledge of when I joined those companies. And I went just by myself into those companies. I didn't go along with my loyal group of people, which usually happens. They follow in a group. When I did this, trust was the only thing I could stand upon. Because if I had come with my loyal group of people, then I'm giving a signal and indication that I don't trust the people in the new organization. And therefore, the first thing was, look, I'm alone here. I don't know anything, but I will learn from you and I will give you something which you may not have. And that it takes time, it builds trust. And of course, you need to be fair and equitable and honest, and you demonstrate that, you live that life, and then you begin to have trust. And I've seen people who were very skeptical in the first 1 year or 2 years. Later on, after 3 or 4 years, they become your best friends, best colleagues.
Yeah.
Because you have developed trust and you are allowing people to leverage their strengths. I think that's a fantastic, fantastic situation, I would say.
So something related to that, sir, Rajesh Budhiraja asks, is it leading from the back means creating more leaders within the organization?
Absolutely.
At various levels.
You have hit the nail on his head. It does mean that creating more leaders and distribute the leadership. You are not the sole owner of all the decisions.
Okay, sir. Richard I is asking, leading yourself, taking ownership, and then being detached also. Doesn't it appear mutually inconsistent?
Yeah, it appears on the face of it, it appears inconsistent. But actually, if you go deeper into it, it is a very very thoughtful thing, being detached. And actually, the two sides of the same coin, being owner and being detached.
इसके लिए थोड़ी भगवत गीता पढ़नी पड़ेगी सर लोगों को मेरे ख्याल
से। सही आपने बोल दिया मैं भगवत गीता नहीं बोलना चाहता था
जी,
भगवत गीता, but it is that, and I gave you example of Chandragupta Maurya and Ashoka and all these people. That's a great examples.
Correct, sir. Sir, I'm going a little bit away from the so-called world leadership. I just want to know, I was crazy about your nano car, sir, that great project. Some people feel that nano failed to attract the people. Is it correct? And if it actually failed, what were the reasons, sir?
I think we'll have another session on that. It's a long one. I can't answer that in the time that we have with us. But we can have a separate chat, or we can have another session on that.
Can we ask a question?
Sir, please, Ghurana, sir, please go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Kant. This is Major General Khurana.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Since you have quoted extensively from the military, 3,000 years and so on and so forth, I have a little doubt after listening to your excellent presentation and based on your personal experiences. Now, leadership is at various layers, various levels. The situations are different at different times. So therefore, and also the definition of front and back keeps varying. Now, if I think Commander Jaitley made this point, we've been listening to the management school saying lead from the front and so on and so forth. I'll rather be hesitant in telling the youngsters at this stage that leading from the front is not the answer. My point to you, which is causing me a little thinking after listening to you, that it depends on the level of leadership. It depends on the situation criticality of, and it depends on what is front and what's back. I, as a Major General, have fought 3 wars. I've taken troops to Sri Lanka. I've taken them to Maldives. Now, for me, being in the back would not have served the purpose. You want to be seen. When you see people dying by the dozens with their hands literally tied, then you want to be seen with them. Similarly, I've sat on the corporate boards, and if the lower level managers or middle level managers start believing in leading from the back, I think that may not quite work. So would you like to correct my confused thinking that if it may sound...
No, sir, it's not confused thinking, but I think both are complementary. Leading from the back does not mean you don't show your face. Of course, you show your face. And many times in corporate world also, I'll just give an example of say LML. LML was passing through very difficult periods, and or even in Tata Motors when I joined, the economy tanked, and along with the Tata Motors modules tanked. See, the first natural thing is to come and start doing things yourself, because I know a lot. I have done it earlier, and therefore start doing it. And that I feel is the wrong way of doing things. Yes, of course, you need to show your face, but you need to leverage this. You need to identify the strengths of your people. You need to leverage the strengths. You need to give them responsibilities. You need to give them the freedom to act. Of course, you will kind of review that. You will correct that. All these things will happen. And you will show your face wherever it is possible, wherever it is required to be seen. It does not mean, the leading from the back does not mean that you are behind a curtain. Leading from the back is only you are allowing your team to take a lot of decisions. And you have distributed leadership.
Sorry, I did not mean the face in real, I meant metaphorically. You know, there will be a time when you will have to get up front, but at the senior level, at the CEO's level, or even the tier 2 level, I would probably go along with you. But when you come down to the managers, when you come down in the corporate world, junior managers, or in the army, captains and majors, I'm afraid for them, it is more important to be up there.
Yeah.
Up there with the team.
Yeah.
As you go higher, then I agree with you completely. Be detached, have the ownership, develop more leaders. So I was just wondering about that.
No, what you're saying is in a way right. And you see, the leading from the front, I didn't talk about, because if you were to take people, I don't want to name people, but if you were to take people who can be identified by leading from the front type, those kind of personalities are not liked anymore. The younger generation doesn't want those kind of pompous know-all people, which is natural corollary of leading from the front. Yes, there's always, you can have a mix of little bit. See, to make a point, you must be a little, I would say, away from the main point. That's what I'm trying to say. Leading from the back does not mean that there are many aspects of leading the front which you will adopt in leading from the back also. But to make the point, you make it starkly different. You could call it by some other name, as I said. I don't want to, leading from the back may not be the right thing, but you can call it by any other name. The whole idea is that you have distributed leadership, and you develop people to take leadership, allow them freedom, allow them this thing. But doesn't mean, but at the end of the day, you carry the can. I mean, there's no getting away from that fact. And therefore, it is a far more difficult.
Sir, can I make a statement?
Far more difficult. When you are younger. Sorry?
Can I make a statement that when you are young in the organization, you just join, maybe sales, marketing, production, in any field, probably you have to lead from the front for your subordinates. But as you grow senior and senior and senior, you start giving them the delegation to the junior people, and you start taking a little back seat. That doesn't mean that you are letting it go. You continue to monitor where it is important, and some places you just delegate and forget, and some places you delegate and continue to monitor.
Yeah, of course, many of these things are there. But as I said, in a short period of time, you cannot do justice to all the aspects of these things. So,
yes, sir. Sir, one more question is from Alok Dev. Is there any way to identify leader or leaders who have led from the back, leading to rise in productivity?
Yeah, there could be many examples. I mean, there could be many examples. I know people within the organization who have done that. I don't know about outside.
Thank you, sir. There are too many questions and the time is running out. So I think time has come for me to request our founder chairman, Partha Ghosh to just give his perspective about the talk today and the Q&A today. Partha.
Oh my God, that's a huge task. Ravi, first, thank you very much. You obviously presented your experience, and I'm not surprised with each and every word that you've used is manifestation of your personality. That's the first point I want to make. So thank you very much on behalf of the Academy, behalf of IIT Kharagpur, which you're also part of. And here onward, we'll see you as part of the Academy of Leadership as well. Now, I wanted to make a couple of points, maybe that could be a next book which you and I could write together. You made a very important point. The first point, leadership is contextual. So the context shifts. The debate that Dr. Khurana, Major General Khurana and you were having, whether it's front or back, I would say great leaders know where the pivot point is. Sometimes the pivot is in the back, and in the front.
Still, I don't hear anything.
Are you muted?
Sorry. So I think being able to locate the point where the pivot point is, and often in a knowledge society, in a concept of interconnected world where we are developing ecosystem, the control room is the pivot point. But sometimes to create examples of what is to be done, the front could be the point of pivoting. So I think the pivoting is the key, and the great leaders know how to be at the point of pivot. That's one message I think I take from Ravi, what you said, and based on the questions and answers that followed. The second point that comes out very loud and clear, which often we kind of neglect, but Gita has repeatedly talked about it, that focus on the process, excellence of the process, which Ravi you have done. And it is not about taking the credit, it is selflessly giving by focusing on the excellence of the process. And to focus on the excellence of the process, you take the process seriously, not yourself seriously. And that is where the detachment word comes in. That you do not connect your emotions with the process. You want to do the process right, objectively, and not taking credits. The third point, which I feel, again, the question and answer, because I think Pranav summarized your points extremely well, so I'm not really summarizing from that context, from the context of the questions that were raised, or the questions that I see in front, and the comments that the commander made, is the third point, which is extremely important, and that's why we have created the Academy of Leadership, is creating the open mind. Unfortunately, more we succeed, Ravi, you have made it very clear that we close our mind. But the great individuals like Isaac Newton is to say, more knowledge I gain, more I realize how little I know. And personally, I could speak for myself. I definitely feel that way. And that's where I think great leaders should be first great students, continuously learn, and in the process explore new frontiers with a childlike curiosity, so that touch the unknown. I think that comes between the lines of your lecture, and I think I wanted to underscore that. And the final point, which I think you are the perfect presentation of the points that you made, and which Ratan also touched on, is the point of, not taking one experience and planting into the next experience. That's what we do it too easily. This is how I do it in the past, so it should work in the future. We totally lose the context of being contextual. So contextual, I will end with one point. The point context has I think, triple meaning, and I would like to share with that feeling. The context of the environment is changing. The context where literally the pivot point is, which is the point I think Dr. Khurana and you were discussing, the pivot point changes, but clearly in the knowledge-based society, in a society which is hyper-connected world, the pivot point is clearly something that we have to track very carefully as a leader. where do I want to be most effective? Because after all, it is a productivity of time which defines the leadership. And the last point, which I talk about a lot, and I think people who know me, and I think you have touched on it, but I want to share with you, I often have said, with egos outside and divine within, the possibilities are limitless. I mean, that's one of our quotes. I have used it for the last 30 years, that with the egos outside, divine within, because typically it happens the other way around. We keep the egos within and we go to the temple to worship the God. But I think you have to keep the God within and take the egos out, and the possibilities will become huge. So with that, Ravi, I look forward to you participating in the Academy of Leadership. If you write, we can write. Being a pivotal leader is just a thought came to my mind when Dr. Khurana and we were discussing, but we could debate that. And we would like to invite you to talk about the nano situation, because, you know, Ravi, the reason it triggered, because when I met you, Ratan was talking very proudly of the nano concept with me, and the whole redesign of the concept. And then he talked about you. I think it'd be very good if you could share with the audience the leadership in the context of nano. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for a fantastic session. I think I will pass it back to, I think, Pranav, you're going to offer us the vote of thanks.
Sure, sir. It will be my pleasure to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. In fact, most important, thank you to Ravi, sir, for spending this time and sharing all his 5 decades of experience with us. And in 50 minutes, or I would say in 40 minutes time, sharing that experience of 5 decades is absolutely impossible. So, sir, we would look forward to have more of you, more lectures from you, and especially about the nano project, as everyone has been talking about. So thank you very much for spending time with us. I would also like to thank others, our board of advisors, including our founder, Partha sir, Partha Ghosh sir, Commander V.K. Jetli, Puran Dang sir, Major General Khurana sir, who is there. And I would also like to thank Mr. R. Gopala Krishnan, who is also our board of advisors. Apart from that, I would also
Dr. Vashde.
Chairman of Partha Ghosh Academy, Dr. Sailendra Vashne, and others who have joined in, especially people who keep supporting us for this lecture. Some of them who are very regular. Mr. Larry Kaufman is here, who's been supportive. Madhusudan Chakravarti sir is also here. So thank you very much, sir, for attending. Really pleasure to have you all on in this lecture series. I would request all of you to follow us on all the social media platforms. We have our presence there in case you would like to know more about lecture series which are coming up and other events that we do. We are there on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Also, these lectures will be available on YouTube channel. If you're registered for the lecture, you should get this lecture by email in 48 hours time. So we'll be in sharing all those updates with you as and where possible. Thank you very much. Looking forward to see you all next month's lecture. We will try and give you a update about that as soon as we have some confirmation on that. So thank you very much. Wish you all a very good day ahead. Good day, good evening, and I would say good morning to a lot of people in the United States. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
So, Ravi, thank you very much. Ravi, I'll give you a call.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Ravi, I'll give
I
you a
need to
call.
unmute, sir. I think you need to unmute, sir. Ravi, sir, you need to unmute. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Partha. Thanks for again for inviting me for this interaction. I really enjoyed it. And this will kind of build a basic template for me to talk about on the subject to other people now.